You know that feeling when you walk into someone's house and everything just clicks? The bed is made, the kitchen counter is clear, there's this quiet sense of order, like the space itself is breathing calmly. And then there's the other kind of home, the one with clothes draped over chairs, dishes waiting in the sink, that one drawer that everyone pretends doesn't exist. And maybe you've asked yourself this before. What actually separates these two kinds of people? Is it discipline? Is it personality? Or is it something deeper happening inside the mind? Because here's the interesting part. People who consistently keep their house clean aren't just tidy. They're not simply more organized or more responsible. What you're really looking at is a pattern of thinking, a relationship with control, identity, emotion, and even time itself. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two people finishing a long, exhausting day. Both are equally tired. Both walk into a slightly messy room. One of them drops their bag, sighs, and tells themselves, "I'll deal with it later." The other pauses for a moment and starts putting things back. Same energy level, same situation, completely different response. Why? It starts with something surprisingly simple: how their brain interprets small actions. For people who keep their space clean, cleaning isn't a task. It's not this big, heavy thing sitting on their to-do list. It's closer to brushing your teeth. Automatic, low resistance, almost invisible. But for someone who struggles with mess, cleaning feels like a project, something you have to mentally prepare for, something that requires motivation. And here's the twist. Motivation is unreliable. Psychology has shown this again and again. We like to think we act first and then build habits. But in reality, habits come first. Action becomes easier after repetition rewires the brain. So when someone keeps their house clean, they're not winning a daily battle of willpower. They've simply removed the battle altogether. But that's just the surface. Because underneath that behavior, there's a deeper psychological layer: identity. People who maintain clean environments often see themselves a certain way. Not consciously, not in some loud, ego-driven sense, but quietly in the background, there's a belief like, I'm someone who takes care of my space. And your brain loves consistency. When your actions don't match your identity, your mind feels friction. It's like wearing shoes that don't fit. So what does the brain do? It nudges you back into alignment. If you see yourself as someone organized, leaving dishes in the sink overnight doesn't just feel like laziness. It feels off, slightly uncomfortable, and that discomfort becomes the trigger for action. But if your identity is more like, I'm just messy, then the same situation doesn't create tension. It feels normal, expected. That's why two people can look at the exact same clutter and feel completely different emotions. One feels a subtle itch to fix it. The other barely notices. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Cleaning isn't just about the physical environment. It's deeply connected to emotional regulation. Think about the last time your room got really messy. Not just a little cluttered, but genuinely chaotic. Chances are, something else in your life felt chaotic too. There's a well-documented link in psychology between external order and internal state. When your environment is disorganized, your brain has to process more visual information, more decisions, more noise, and that creates cognitive overload. It's like having too many tabs open in your mind. People who keep their house clean are, in a way, managing that load proactively. They're reducing friction before it builds up. They may not think, I'm regulating my nervous system right now, but that's exactly what's happening. A clear space gives the brain fewer distractions, fewer micro-stresses, more room to think, breathe, and focus. And over time, the brain starts to associate cleanliness with calm. So maintaining that environment becomes less about effort and more about preserving a feeling. But let's be honest for a second. Not all clean homes come from calm minds. Sometimes the opposite is true. For some people, cleaning becomes a form of control. When life feels unpredictable, when relationships are uncertain, when work feels unstable, when emotions feel messy, the physical world becomes the one place where order is possible. You can't control everything, but you can control your desk, your bed, your kitchen. And that control can feel grounding. Almost like saying, at least this part of my world makes sense. This is where things get nuanced. Because the psychology of cleanliness isn't always about peace. Sometimes it's about anxiety, about trying to create stability in a world that doesn't always offer it. And that doesn't make it bad. It makes it human. In fact, many behaviors we admire, discipline, organization, consistency, often have roots in both healthy and protective mechanisms. The key difference is flexibility. People with a balanced relationship to cleanliness can let things go when needed. They can tolerate a little mess without feeling overwhelmed. But when cleaning becomes rigid, when it has to be perfect, when disorder feels intolerable, that's when it shifts from a helpful habit to something heavier. So again, it's not just about what you see, it's about what's driving it. Now let's zoom in on something subtle but powerful: time perception. People who keep their homes clean tend to think in smaller time units. They don't see cleaning as a 2-hour event. They see it as tiny moments scattered throughout the day. Wiping the counter right after cooking, folding clothes while watching something, putting things back immediately instead of later. It's not more time, it's different timing. And this changes everything, because procrastination thrives on big, undefined tasks. The moment something feels large, your brain resists it. But when an action takes 10 seconds, there's almost nothing to resist. So over time, these micro actions compound. And what looks like effortless cleanliness is actually the result of hundreds of tiny decisions that never felt heavy enough to avoid. It's like compound interest, but for behavior. And here's the part that might surprise you. This isn't about personality as much as we think. We often label people as clean or messy as if it's fixed. But research in behavioral psychology suggests that environment and systems play a bigger role than traits. If you change the system, you change the behavior. For example, if everything in your home has a clear place, putting things away becomes easier. If your storage is intuitive, your brain doesn't have to think as much. Less thinking means less resistance, and less resistance means more action. So sometimes the difference between a messy space and a clean one isn't motivation, it's design. It's how easy your environment makes the right behavior. Think about that for a second. What if it's not that you're bad at keeping things clean, but that your environment isn't helping you succeed? That shift alone can change how you see yourself, because suddenly it's not a personal flaw, it's a solvable problem. And that brings us to something deeper: self-compassion. People who successfully maintain habits, whether it's cleaning, exercising, or anything else, tend to recover quickly from slip-ups. They don't spiral. If things get messy for a few days, they don't turn it into a story about failure. They simply reset. And this matters more than consistency itself, because perfection isn't sustainable, but recovery is. The ability to come back without judgment, that's what keeps the cycle going. So in a strange way, a consistently clean home isn't built on never falling behind. It's built on not staying behind. And maybe that's the real psychology underneath all of this. It's not about being perfect. It's about having a relationship with your environment that supports you instead of draining you. A relationship where small actions feel natural, where your identity aligns with your behavior, where your space reflects the kind of mental state you want to live in. And here's where I want to bring it back to you. If you've ever looked at your own space and felt overwhelmed or judged yourself for not keeping things together, pause for a moment. Because this isn't about comparing yourself to someone else. It's about understanding what your current habits are trying to do for you. Maybe your mess is a sign of exhaustion, of burnout, of a brain that's been juggling too much. And maybe what you need isn't more discipline. Maybe you need smaller steps, gentler systems, a different way of thinking about the process. Because the goal isn't to become someone else. It's to build a version of your environment that works for you, one small action at a time. Maybe it starts with clearing one surface, not the whole room, just one. Maybe it's putting something back the moment you're done with it. Maybe it's noticing how a clean space actually makes you feel and letting that feeling guide you instead of forcing yourself through guilt. Because once your brain starts associating cleanliness with ease instead of effort, everything shifts. And suddenly, the idea of keeping your house clean doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like alignment, like your outside world finally matching what your inside world has been asking for. So the next time you walk into a clean room, don't just see it as discipline. See it as psychology in action, a quiet reflection of habits, identity, emotion, and tiny choices stacking up over time. And if this made you look at your own space a little differently, or even at yourself a little differently, that's a good place to start. Let me know what your space says about you right now. And more importantly, what you want it to say.